Welcome to the Atlantis channel. My name is Dakota Hunt. I am a breathwork facilitator and life coach. And today I have a special guest. Her name is Lauren. She is in the breathwork training with me. And I just got to know a little bit about Lauren, and I'm super excited to talk to her. She has been in the mental health industry for 10 plus years. Correct me if I'm wrong there. And so she has a lot of insight on mental health, and I'm really excited to talk to her about why ultimately she decided to add breath work to her practice. Further, Lauren works with pregnancy and postpartum in women, and so I'm really excited. That's definitely a near and dear place to my heart. It's been only 3 years. I've had two kids in the last 3 years, and so that pregnancy is really fresh on my mind. So without going further, Lauren, I'll let you take over. I would love to know, why did you choose to add breathwork to your practice?
Such a wonderful question. And you are right. It's been like 10 plus years being in the therapy world. And um, I added breath work officially because I really have found in my years of work that talk therapy is wonderful. And like, don't get me wrong, I think it's very needed and absolutely beneficial thing to have, but it also doesn't really get at the heart of the matter
Yeah.
typically. I think some people maybe do better in talk therapy than others, but um, I had found like really getting into the body and processing emotions in more of this felt sense physically was really helpful. And like you said, yes, right now my specialty is pregnancy and postpartum. So um, the women that I see, sometimes it's pre-pregnancy and with fertility issues. So all the way through to postpartum, and that's also a different range of time because traditionally they say like it's a year after you have the baby, but I kind of run on the assumption that you're postpartum forever after you have a
Yeah.
baby, technically.
Yeah.
There's not an end to it, but um how we store emotions, how we feel emotions, how we know emotions, it's all physically. And so when something gets stuck, when there's a trauma, it's all in our body. And in trying to find ways to help women connect more with their bodies and get the feelings out of their bodies, uh, breath work, it started in my work years ago, like little by little, and just kind of like breath awareness, mindfulness, right? Deep breathing. I think, very cliche therapist thing, like just breathe,
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
some deep breaths. Um, but it's really an amazing tool to have actually, to have that intentional breath work, to have that experience where you can really connect with your body, feel what's there, even though it can be really scary, really big sometimes.
Yeah.
That is how I found that we like actually move forward. I don't want to say the best again, like everybody kind of responds differently with what works for them, but um, in my opinion and experience, breathwork is one of the quickest ways to get
Hmm.
into your body.
Yeah. Yeah, I so resonate with that. And I'm curious, why did you decide ultimately to kind of land with this with pregnant women and postpartum? Like, what about your experience or working with clients? What drew you to this niche, to this group of people that is just it's so needed there, right? Like, what was on your heart?
Yeah, I love that because I never saw myself here working with pregnancy and postpartum until I had my first kiddo. And She's almost 6 now, so um, it's been a while since I first started, but what I found over my years of working with adults, working with kids, like back to adults, working with families, is like I was kind of trying to figure out, I think at first, like when's the best time to intervene and support
Mm,
mental health. And after I had my daughter, I was like, oh, in pregnancy, like that's
yeah,
when it starts. Like that's a wonderful time. And even like if women are aware and trying to become pregnant deliberately, it's a really great time before they get pregnant to start working with some of their trauma, some of their like stuck emotions.
yeah,
Um, in terms of like, there's a lot of cycle breakers out there, right? Who are like, I had this growing up. I don't want to
yeah,
perpetuate this. That intention is wonderful. And then actually in practice, like before you get pregnant, while you're pregnant, and even in your postpartum, it's never too late to help yourself, because the more we heal ourselves, obviously, the more we heal the
yeah,
next generation and even past generations. And so, what was really on my heart with that was like, oh my gosh, if I can touch somebody's life before they're born, like, oh my gosh,
yeah,
like how cool. And um as I was saying before, from my own experience, my own like personal awareness of like going through pregnancy, going through um birth, and then having a baby for the first time. Like I was the first one in my family in my generation to have a baby. I
mm,
never really been around babies, didn't necessarily know
yeah,
anything about them. Like, you hear a lot of stuff from people. When you're pregnant, people love to
yeah.
offer things
They do. They really
like
do.
without asking a lot. But
Yeah.
um, it was very much an experience for me of like, wow, I could really see how this stress, like how all of
Mm,
this can create different patterns and tensions and different
mm,
traumas. And it just became kind of so fascinating to me that I was like, it just naturally happened. And
yeah.
that's where I ended up.
Those are the best journeys, the ones that just like they seem to just land. You're like, oh, here I am 5 years later. Like, like that's I feel like that's what I'm always helping women do I used to be a brand strategist and I still do brand strategy, but when I help people with their journey is like that place where you just land, you were working towards that the whole time, you know? And so I
Yeah.
love that. That's so
Little did
beautiful.
I know that was my path. Yeah.
That's yeah, yeah. It's so much easier to connect the dots looking back, right? Yeah. And I love something you said was about like you get to help these beings in the womb, right? Like before they're even born. But what's
Mm,
so beautiful about the process is that the way that you help that little child in the womb is through the mother,
yeah. It's
right?
like a double win.
Yeah, it's like a two for
Yeah.
one. Yeah, I would love to actually hear your thoughts on that some more is like I can see like it just makes so much sense to me when you heal. There's actually a quote, I can't remember it, but something about, like healing, we just need to heal mothers, right? I don't remember the quote. I'll have to find it. But when we heal the mother, we heal the child, right? Like we heal generations when we heal mothers.
Hmm.
And so I would love to hear maybe like from your experience with helping other women, or maybe you're in your own personal experience, is how does looking at those emotions, looking at the like potential trauma, those mental health concerns, like whatever it might be, how does looking at them in the mother affect the baby?
Yeah. So in pregnancy, obviously, like our body, our hormones, our experiences, like, they impact the fetus. Of course, they
Yeah.
tell us, like, don't get stressed out because you don't want to stress your baby out too
Yeah, which like
much.
what
But
does that even mean?
yeah, and I actually hate that because
Yeah.
your your uterus essentially, like, yes, there's like a blood barrier, right? The baby gets like washed in things from your body. Um, but it's almost like I heard a great analogy once, and like it just landed so well with me. But like your uterus is protecting you from the baby, honestly, because this baby is a
Oh,
foreign object in your body. So baby's kind of okay. Um, it's protected.
yeah.
Let's just say that. But
Yeah.
what what we do know is that yes, if mom's like stressed all the time, it does ultimately end up impacting the baby and the baby's stress response and how they understand and kind of come into this world, just from day one with this expectation almost of constant stress, and so that's not good for their nervous system necessarily. So as we can work with moms, as we can help calm their bodies, soothe their nervous systems, help heal their wounds,
Yeah.
we're teaching their baby what's possible. I guess we're
Mm.
giving them almost resources early on to deal with stress, because stress is normal. We're all going to feel it. It's a very normal response in our body. If anyone ever tries to tell you they're never stressed out, like, I'm skeptical of that.
Yeah.
Um, but we learn to deal with stress. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I've learned over the years is that we can deal with stress even if we can't deal with the stressor. So sometimes
Mm.
there's stressors that we can't change. So poverty is a huge thing. Like, that's just a really big stress that some babies are going to be born into, and there's nothing that we can really do
Yeah.
about it. I like hesitate because I'm like, well, socially
Yeah.
maybe there's
Yeah.
things we could do about it, but we're not. But that's a different
Yeah.
discussion.
Right. Right.
So I love being able to help moms understand their own emotions, understand their own body,
Yeah.
understand their own life circumstances, I guess, in a sense,
Mm.
and help them learn how to make sense of it in a way that maybe that stressor still exists, but they're like, I can deal with this. So there's this sense of empowerment, and
Mm.
when you empower a mom,
Yeah.
that she's good, that she can deal with these things, that it doesn't matter what comes up, like
Yeah.
she's gonna take care of it, she's gonna make it okay on some level.
Mm.
Like, that stress is so much different than, and maybe that baby's got a different start than
Yeah.
one born from a mom who's like, I'm under so much stress and I feel helpless about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's so interesting as you were talking, like what I'm thinking into in my, uneducated, but just like my experience is there's definitely an impact there when they're in the womb, right? Like you're talking about, like there's that barrier, there's that protection of the uterus, and that's so beautiful. And so there's, I think that for me, like I find a lot of comfort and safety in that, right? It's like, okay, it's not all or nothing with the baby when she's in the womb. But then also like what I'm feeling into is you're teaching that mother how to regulate her nervous system, how to be in her own experience and how to be, but like that is just the beginning. It's like what a beautiful time to teach a mom like how to process emotions because whether it impacts the baby or not in the uterus, like when that baby is here and it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 10, like that mom has tools that
Mm,
so many people don't have. And whether she like directly teaches the kid or not, like she's modeling that, right? Like
yeah.
it's just the beginning. Like you
Yes.
said, even,
So
yeah,
so much
so
of our
good.
learning is not necessarily like direct. It's
Yeah.
really indirect and implicit. And yeah, we watch our moms, and that's kind of how we learn about the world, right?
Yeah.
We watch our family. And also, like, to just touch on what you said, like you said, uneducated, but your experience, like, that is
Yeah.
education.
Thank you. Thank you for calling me out on
Yeah.
that.
Oh my goodness. Like,
Yeah.
that's how we all learn, right? We go through
Yeah.
it. And if we're aware, right? If we feel like we have tools and we're like, okay, there's this thing happening, and my life is changing. Nothing changes your life like becoming a parent.
No, nothing.
No, there's nothing like it. We learn a great deal, and life is a beautiful teacher, sometimes a really hard teacher,
Yeah.
but we can learn a lot from our experiences. And so it really is yeah, teaching a mom tools, and then yeah, she can pass them
Yeah.
directly, like, or through modeling. Like you said, we're social learners. So
Yeah.
um as you know, especially if you're a little girl, right? Watching your mom feel empowered and capable, and
Mm.
um not helpless, not in a sense of, oh,
Mm-hmm.
life just happens to me, which I'm, just to say also for another time, like, it is hard to be a woman in the patriarchy.
We could talk forever
um
about that.
oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to watch your mom, to feel your mom, because it's not even just about watching, it's about then feeling her energy and feeling the shifts. Because
Yeah.
when we learn, stressors happen, things happen that we can't control, and we can deal with them and we can process our emotions from
Mm.
them. That is such a beautiful teacher down the road for the kids. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's okay. It's okay to be stressed, because again, like I said, it's gonna happen. Can't avoid it. Sorry. I wish we could. Somebody everywhere has some kind of stress. So if we can learn, yeah, I can deal with this. I
Yeah.
can handle it. I'll manage.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. It's so good. And I've been reflecting on my own experience as you've been talking a little bit, and it's so interesting. When I had my first daughter, Millie, I had her in 2020, in February 2020. And in that moment, that was probably my second year into my deep personal growth journey from a very mental perspective, like that, I wasn't in like mental health therapy, and I wasn't necessarily struggling with mental health, but I was like mindset. Maybe that's the word. I was,
Mm,
really into the mindset work, like really developing myself personally. And I was mildly aware of things that I didn't want to be as a mom, right? Like the things that
yeah.
I didn't want to bring forward, like from my past or whatever my experiences have been. And so I would do the mindset work. I would, do all the things, but like at the end of the day, I still found myself reactive. Like I still found myself like in these behaviors and in these patterns that I could journal about and logic about all day long. I could talk about, I could process verbally with someone. And I just kept finding myself in these patterns. So it was just like, what the heck? Like rage. Like rage is one of mine, right? So I would just be in this rage. And so ultimately I'm transitioning to this breath work because it was ultimately, I mean, here we are in 2023. So my oldest is 3 and I have a 1 year old now. When my 1 year old was born in 2021, at the end of 2021, that's really like when I started noticing these patterns. Because to be honest, my first one was pretty easy. Like she was pretty easy. So she didn't trigger those behaviors as much. But when my current 1 year old was born, she really started triggering those behaviors. Like, and I just noticed myself feeling this sense of helplessness that you were talking about, like
Mm.
this sense of out of control. And it's like I'd been doing the work, like I was advancing, I was achieving goals, like what the heck, right? Like I was just kind of in frustration. Um, and that's ultimately when I landed on breath work. Literally like 1 month after my second daughter was born, I experienced breath work for the first time. And just little by little by little, it kind of just became bigger and bigger. And so for me in my personal journey, breath work was the thing that taught me how to regulate my nervous system so that I'm not reactive. Or when I do react, I can like quickly repair, right? Like I can
Yeah.
quickly see that response and repair. Um, and so, one, thank you for letting me share my story here real quick, but
Oh,
I would
yeah.
love to hear your perspective of what you have seen and noticed with breath work in this work, especially having like that really strong talk therapy background and then bringing breath work into, the practice, into your practice. Has it had an impact on your patients or your clients like it had on me? And maybe it didn't, and that's great. I'm just really curious to know what that has been like for you.
Yeah. I think that experience, like you were describing, and thank you for sharing. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful awareness that you have and had of your process. And um, it's a perfect example of how we can logic our way through something. We can cognitively know these things and know, okay, I'm not doing this with my kids. I'm not doing this with my kids. This is how I'm going to be. And
Mm-hmm.
we have these expectations of ourselves. And sometimes when we have one, and like, thank goddess, sometimes the first one is amazing, or
Yeah.
many of us wouldn't have second children.
Yeah, it's true.
Um,
It's
but we're
true.
also like maybe a little fresher when we have one.
Mm-hmm.
Two is really a change. It's really, I mean, I found that with my second. It's like, wow, I'm tired. Like I
Yeah.
was tired before, but like,
Yeah.
whoa,
Wow.
okay.
I
Like
so feel
these
that.
kids take it out of you. Um, but it really is a wonderful highlight of the embodiment piece of that. So
Mm,
breathwork gets you into your body. Breathwork helps you connect, like your breath is the bridge from your mind to your body to that emotional, like felt sense. And
yeah.
so what we miss in talk therapy often is that embodiment piece of how do you get in your body and actually heal what's there, because it's one thing to have an intention and it's totally necessary to have the intention. We need to be aware, first of all, of
Yeah.
a pattern that's even there that we don't want. So many of us are like, well, this
Mm-hmm.
happened to me and I'm fine. Like, are you?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Are any of us fine? Like, let's just
Yeah.
be curious about that for a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, we really have a harder time actually overcoming something, getting through something,
Yeah.
processing an emotion cognitively. We can't think our way out of an emotion we did not think our way into. So our wonderful
Yeah.
brains are so powerful and amazing, and they're great problem solvers, and not everything is a problem that needs to be solved. Like sometimes we just need to feel. I heard this beautiful quote recently that was, the body thinks and feels. Thinks in feels. So that's how
Yeah.
your body thinks, is through feelings.
Yeah.
And so when we actually allow ourselves to feel it, so like you were saying, like, oh, there's a lot of rage here. Like, oh man, that can feel so big and so powerful. And when we actually feel safe enough, when we connect with our body enough to connect with that rage in a way that we're like, okay, I can look at this. It's not so scary. It's just a feeling.
Yeah.
We can maybe find that place that's wounded in us, the place that wants to be
Yeah.
rage, because rage is a protector. So rage comes out when we're maybe feeling powerless, helpless.
Yeah.
You said
Yep.
yourself, like, second one's born. I'm like, oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, part of me feels totally helpless. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, rage comes out, or your other protector parts. Sometimes our protector parts are people pleasing. Um, sometimes it shows up as more of a defensiveness. There's lots of ways we can show up with that. And a lot of that is based on what did we see? What were our
Yeah.
models? Um, and what was safe, right? So sometimes emotional expression when we were young
Yeah.
wasn't safe, and anger felt safe because anger kind of makes us feel a little bit big and a little bit protected. And so
Yeah.
if that gets a little bit out of control, then there can be that experience. But as you noticed for yourself, and as so many women can notice, and men too, let's like bring them in.
Yep. Thank
It
you.
works for them too. When you feel your feelings in your body and you make space for them and you want to look at them, you breathe into them, you use your breath to connect to that feeling. So we're connecting our mental and our physical. We can release it because it's not in your mind, it's in your body.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for elaborating on that. Um, I have a little bit of an idea. Would you be willing to do a feeler?
Yeah,
Do it live,
let's
or
do
at
a
least record
feeler.
it.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe just like a one way. So what I'm thinking is, as you were talking, like, this is amazing, this is so good, this is so juicy, and we're having a very analytical conversation. We're very much in our minds, right? And it's beautiful. And like we said, we love the mind. I love the mind. I love it so much.
It's a beautiful
And
place.
right, I'm like, how can we like show people or tell people like what does it mean to get in your body? Like I hear that question all the time. Like, what does it mean to like feel your feelings or to get in your body?
Yeah,
Um, and I think we could like talk about it and describe it, but I also think that we could just demonstrate what that might look like.
let's do it.
Are you game to play?
Oh
All
yeah,
right.
let's play.
Beautiful. So yeah, I'll guide you if that's okay. And just for
Sure.
anyone
Yeah.
who's viewing, I'm going to drop Lauren into an exercise that we actually practice in our breathwork facilitator training. So I'm calling it a feeler. That's what we call it in our practice. And this has been such a powerful exercise for me. We do it pretty regularly with other people in the program, or like you can just do it whatever in your life. But the intention is to take your mind and just drop it down into your body. And so I'll just leave an invitation here if anyone's viewing this and wants to join, like join on in
Oh
because
yes,
it's
feel
so powerful.
feel with me. Yeah.
Yeah, feel with Lauren. Yeah, and then Lauren, my invitation to you, if you're willing, is to maybe, if it feels okay, and if not, that's great. Maybe speaking kind of what you're feeling into, so people can kind of follow that and get a sense if it
Yeah,
feels
sure.
good. All right, beautiful. All right, Lauren. So I'm going to invite you to just get cozy for a second. Yeah, see, we're both like just opening up the moment we talk about dropping into our bodies. We open up, let those shoulders and chest open, and then settling here with your eyes closed if that feels right. And then perhaps taking a deep inhale through your nose and out through your mouth. Yeah. And my invitation to you, Lauren, is to take your mind and drop it down into your body and just feel. I'm going to hold space for you here for a couple minutes. Just an invitation to feel what's present in your body, sharing if you feel called to share, but also knowing that you can just be here with your body if that's what feels right.
And so I can notice right away, like what's the word I'm looking for here? There's like a sensation in my sacral area that
Mm,
feels full or tight.
yeah.
I can feel it moving. It's kind of traveling up my backside body almost.
Yeah.
Just like a heat in the back of my neck.
Mm.
I can feel a bit of like coming forward. It's almost like a grip on my throat.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm. Beautiful. Would you like any more time?
I think I feel complete.
Thank you. Yeah, and just taking your time to come back to this space.
Mm.
Thank you for vulnerably sharing what it
Yeah.
looks like to drop into your body.
Well, thank you for giving me a moment to drop into my body. It feels
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. It always surprises me. I gave you 2 minutes, right? And it always surprises me when I take 2 minutes to just literally do what you just did, to shut down my eyes, to drop into my
Mm.
body. Like it's just like, there's emotions and there's turmoil sometimes and there's pain. Like there's things that aren't always necessarily comfortable. But when I feel down into it, it's just like this immediate release. And it's
Yeah.
that mind, right? It's just like, oh, okay. Like we just get to be here.
Yeah. And that, like, honestly, it felt like 30 seconds. It didn't feel like
So
2 minutes at
fast.
all. It goes by so fast. But um, yeah, I would just like to give a little bit of even my experience doing that. Like, I think when we allow ourselves to just drop in and pay attention
Mm,
and not necessarily judge anything, because I know I very well could have been like, what's that sensation? Like, why do I feel this? Oh my gosh. Like, and
yeah.
just like gripped it a lot tighter. But when we're just giving ourselves space to be aware of ourselves,
Mm,
aware of our body, and curious, it's almost like the second, I don't know if you experience it this way or not, but kind of like w- when you attune to a sensation or an emotion, it's almost like it then just like fizzles. And it's like,
yeah.
it was like, oh, hi, I'm
Yeah.
out.
Oh,
Like,
that's exactly how it is.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt very weird at first. It was like, is that supposed to just go? I don't feel that anymore. Is this right? Is it wrong? But
Yeah.
I think it's just, it's like, oh, I got some attention.
Hmm.
I'm okay.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's so good. Such a good illustration. And for me, it's exactly like that. And sometimes it does it without any like language. Like you were struggling in the beginning to find language. And that's because it's like, you don't need to find language, right? Like that's not necessarily part of it. So sometimes when I bring my awareness, there's just that like fizzling away into just kind of peace, or it's like, oh, that was interesting. Like, beautiful. And sometimes there's a message there. Sometimes it's like awareness, like, oh, I'm holding somebody else's
Oh,
fear. And then like that, then it's like that awareness there, love, and it kind of fizzles and fades away.
yeah.
Um,
I love
and
that.
sometimes it doesn't. And I'm like, okay, curious. Like I've been really, really aware of like a ton of tension in my shoulders lately. And it's like sometimes I can kind of get to relax and sometimes I can't. And I don't have to judge it. It's just like I get to be aware like there's something here, there's a lot here, and it's not ready to be released yet. There's still more to learn, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Mm,
Thank you for mentioning that. I think sometimes when we're aware of something, there's a pressure to get rid of it, right? But if
To
we
fix it or
can,
change it.
yeah, if we can just give it space, even if it's uncomfortable, so it might be a physical tension, it might be an
Yeah.
emotion, there might be anxiety or depression. When we can accept it and accept it in a way that's like non-judgmental and not attaching
Hmm.
to it, like not like, oh, I'm depressed, like, but oh, like, okay, I notice this is here and it's kind of feeling sticky.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I'm just gonna be curious about it.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a good practice for sure of just,
Mm.
like you said, there's something else here. I'll get to it.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
figure it out. Like, I'll release it
Yeah.
when it's ready.
Yeah.
The
The
time will
body's,
come.
yeah. Yeah. The body's on its own timeline, you know? Like
Yeah.
our mind wants to just like get in there and just unravel everything, but the body's just like, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
chill. Like we'll get it.
Yeah. I think sometimes our
Um,
mind races and goes a little crazy because it's like, there's a problem and I'm going to fix it.
yeah.
I'm going to make this better. But sometimes there's not a problem. So there's nothing
Yeah.
to fix and your mind is just going and there's just not a solution it can come up with because there isn't a
Yeah.
solution. Sometimes just letting it be and giving it its time, giving it its space.
Mm,
But I also, want to point out that's not necessarily like wallowing.
yeah. Yeah.
Again, it's that non-attachment that I think is
Yeah.
important with that. So, like you said, with that tension, like, okay, like this is
Hmm.
uncomfortable, right? But there's something here. So
Hmm.
I'm just gonna
So
stick with
good.
it, keep my attention there, and maybe get a massage.
Yes. 100%. Yes. Oh, beautiful. Lauren, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. Thank you for sharing your heart. Thank you for sharing your practice. I so appreciate you today.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. I'm curious if somebody just like loves you, which everyone will, but if someone's really drawn to you, is there a way to work with you? And if so, how can people find you?
Yes, you can find me. I have a website and I'm on Instagram. Um, I don't do a lot on social media, but it's
Totally
there.
great.
It's an edge for me.
Yeah.
Um, but my business is called The Nurtured Self, and
Mm,
um, nurturedself.org is my website. You can find me that way. Email me at Lauren at nurturedself.org. Um, I can
mm,
respond that way. But
beautiful.
um, yeah, any of those ways is good. And um, yeah, I can't wait to talk with you more. This was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so fun. Thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely link to those in the show notes so that people can just easily click down there and find you and follow along. Beautiful.
Awesome.
Thanks, Lauren. I
Yeah,
hope you have
thank
a
you,
great night.
Dakota.